one thing that you may not know about me is that after all that service in the legislature, I did honor the vote of the people of Idaho on the issue of term limits. So after 10 years of serving in the Idaho House, I term limited myself because I was honoring the vote of the people. I don't believe in career politicians. No disrespect to others that are there, but I don't believe in that. And it was time for me to go back home. I was missing my family. Sometimes it's hard because I take a lot of things to heart. Things mean a lot to me, and I fight hard. I go to Boise and I fight hard. And sometimes that gets to you after a while. So after 10 years, I was ready to go back home. Went back home, and that's when we started up a business from scratch, the restaurant, the Irish restaurant downtown. And our automotive industries are businesses that are second generation companies. And so Jimmy and I, we did purchase the businesses from his father and my in-laws. And we worked hard for a decade to pay off that business and make all the payroll taxes and make the property tax payments and the mortgage payment. And so it wasn't easy for us to do that. But in going back to Idaho Falls and opening up this new restaurant that from scratch, and we didn't know anything about running a restaurant, but it was kind of a dream that we had. And we took this old decrepit building, and with our own hands, we worked really hard. And we took this old decrepit building in downtown Idaho Falls and turned it into a jewel downtown. But when we realized that how difficult it has gotten to be for individuals to recognize their American dream. And Liza, working with her and teaching her the business, and she's educated in business, and so is our son from the University of Idaho. She said, "Mom, how do you know all these things that you're supposed to do in business, all the reports you have to fill out and the compliance, insurance, tax, and all of that?" And it hit me how difficult it's gotten to be. What we have done in our economy to make it really tough for our kids, the next generation, to realize their American dream. So I wanted to get back involved in the process to try to help make it easier. And I also, being a fiscal-minded person, I really track fiscal policy issues. And I saw what was happening in our state that had me concerned. And that's what this graph here represents. It's the state of Idaho. It's our state budget laid out so that you can visually see where the money that's built into our budgets, where it comes from. And so the bottom rung on the state, in our state budget, is the amount of federal dollars that's built into our state budgets today. It's almost 35%. And that's real concerning because there's no such thing as a free lunch. When you take that federal money, there's always strings attached. And so being a person that's lived in Idaho most of my life, and like many of you, and we love Idaho. It's a great state. It's a beautiful state. And the best thing about Idaho is the people of Idaho. We're a very, very independent, self-reliant people, but we're losing our sovereignty here. And in every way that you can look in our classroom, the Common Core that's adopted into our classroom, it's not called Common Core anymore, but all the requirements, it's all about matching the federal way of doing things. There's a bill going through the legislature right now that relating to sex education, that we have to now conform our sex education class according to the way the federal government tells us we should do. And it repeals a whole chapter of code, which is beautifully written by the intent of the legislature, that on that issue, it is up to the family and the community to determine what those courses are going to be. So that's working its way through the legislature right now. The safe and gun-free zones are in place today because of a federal grant that was accepted into the school district. There is one school district in one part of the state, I think it might be Garden Valley. They declined that federal grant money, and they have implemented a policy in their school district that obviously their community and their students feel safe, and they're doing it their way. In healthcare, I mean, we can just go on and on. Healthcare is the worst, whether it's Obamacare and the requirements of every single health insurance policy that we have the opportunity to buy. It's mandated that, I mean, at least the mandate to buy the policy was removed, but still within every single health insurance policy, the federal government dictates there's 10 essential health benefits that have to be included in every policy. So it's like if you were to go out and buy auto insurance and you just wanted to buy coverage for if there was a catastrophe, you could buy insurance that might be, more affordable for your pocket than if you went and bought a policy that paid for all the oil changes, replacing all the broken windshields, a car wash every week. That's the way the health law is today, written under federal law for health insurance. And then the Medicaid program, it also, of course, is even more cumbersome. I'm traveling around the state visiting assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and our veterans' homes, and the rules that they have to comply with for a federal inspection every year. They're rule binders like this. And we have real challenges coming down. A lot of people are moving into Idaho. It's going to be a challenge on our services. We had better figure out a different way of serving the people in our state than this one size fits all. In education, I really like the idea of the go on model that everyone has to go to college and receive their 4-year degree. Doesn't always work for everyone. And that's what's being pushed through these standards and our leadership. But there's a lot of students that don't think the same way as others and maybe don't want to go to college. And I want to be proud to say to our kids that, hey, you know what? If you want to become a plumber, or if you want to become a radiation technologist, or if you want to become a welder, then that is really cool that that's what you want to do. And we're going to do what we can as a state to help give you some training so that you can come out of the school and have hands-on skills to be able to get a job, 100% placement when you come out of your program. And most likely those young people are the ones that are going to go on and be able to realize the American dream of opening up their own small business. So I don't believe in the one size fits all approach. I think it's time now, 2018 is the year that we start pushing back on this federal encroachment into our lives. This is the year. 2018 is the same as 2016. It's a revolutionary time that we can reclaim our destiny, work with the new administration, push back, figure out a responsible way to manage the resources on our lands. We're sitting on a pot of gold in Idaho, and those lands within the boundary of Idaho, according to the intent of our founding fathers and the protection of our Constitution, that land belongs to the people of the state of Idaho. And we can show the rest of the nation how we can manage those resources properly. We can have responsible timber harvests. We have technology. We can figure out how to mine those valuable resources. In this part of our state, there are some very valuable rare minerals right here in Idaho that no other place other than China and Russia has. We have that here in Idaho, and we can figure out the technology to mine that out of our lands and put it back the way it looks. And then the grazing on our lands, those grazing permits have just dipped. And so these are people whose livelihoods for decades and generations have depended on this. And it's going down. Our rural communities especially are suffering. And so it's time that we reclaim our heritage and we fight back. I have a lot of faith in the people of Idaho, and I'm asking you to help us all save our state, and let's take our state back. And it's just amazing the opportunities that we really do have. Well, because I believe one thing that Tim probably didn't know about myself, I was raised in a Christian family. My parents, I'm the second out of 5. My parents are still alive in Idaho Falls, and those beliefs that my parents taught me are still with me. And these things creep in slowly. They start with little small modifications, and we tend to say, well, that's not that big of a deal. Okay, we'll put that in, and then that leads to another thing, and then eventually everything is flipped upside down on its head. But it starts with the little things, and what is troubling about that piece of legislation, again, it repeals a whole chapter, a paragraph. I wouldn't say chapter, but a whole paragraph where it leaves all that up to the family and the community. And the statement of purpose is worded that says, this legislation removes antiquated language in law. I'm like, wow, that's written by the chair of the House Education Committee, the current chair. So it just really causes you to pause. Where are these people? Who are they listening to? So we have to push back on that. But in order to get our state, keep it healthy, because we can't just say we're going to take all that federal money out of our budget in 1 year. That would not be responsible. The first thing that we need to do is quit expanding the programs. And there's a bill under consideration in the legislature to expand Medicaid. The first thing we need to do is quit expanding the program. And then we need to work on instituting policy that will be good for all businesses, big or small, fair tax policy, not special interest ones. 3 of my opponents have voted for special interest tax legislation, which feeds into cronyism and corruption. The director of Department of Commerce is the individual who determines whether or not your business can receive all these tax incentives. So we have tax policy that is fair and balanced to all businesses and creates less of a burden on taxation and regulation to help all of our industry become stronger. We're 49th lowest in the nation in the measurement of per capita measurement of personal income, which measures the wealth and the productivity of a state. So because we have such a low measure of personal income, we're ranked that low, and we need to work on increasing our productivity in manufacturing through these skills training programs and supporting our existing small business so that we can start, after we halt the expansion of the federal program, we can start building out of that dependency and become self-sufficient. President Ronald Reagan said, and he is just as alive today as Elvis is, the government is not the solution to the problem. Government is the problem. And so any person who is a business owner, an entrepreneur, knows the best thing that the government can do is to get off our backs. Just leave us alone. And that's through tax policy, lower taxes, less regulation, and just working to create an environment that's very conducive to economic development.